He looked my father in the eye and asked, "So, how much is your kid's school costing you?" The whole backyard fell quiet. Burgers sizzling on the grill. Fireworks still echoing faintly from a few blocks away. Kids chasing each other with sparklers. And my uncle, standing there, beer in hand, casual as ever, had just lobbed the kind of question that usually gets answered with pride. Numbers. Maybe a humble brag. Maybe even a chuckle and a sigh about how expensive college is these days. But before my dad could say a word, I turned to my uncle and said it. "What are you asking him for? I'm the one paying for it." And in that instant, I saw it. His face. My dad. That look of heat and humiliation rising behind the polite smile he tried to hold. The kind of look that says, "You just crossed a line." I hadn't meant to draw blood. I just told the truth. But sometimes, the truth is the sharpest thing you can say. Let me rewind. I was never one of those kids who could breeze through school. I worked hard. I cared. I studied. But growing up under my dad's roof wasn't just about grades. It was about surviving his version of control. From 6th grade through high school, my life was lived under scrutiny. Every missed assignment, every drop in a grade, even when it wasn't my fault, was met with fury. If a teacher hadn't updated the gradebook and something was temporarily marked as missing, that was enough to get screamed at. Not scolded, screamed at, grounded, punished. He'd go through my backpack at random, search my locker without warning, not because I'd done anything wrong, but just to make sure I'm not hiding anything. There were rules, so many rules. Rules that sounded reasonable on paper, like keep your grades up or stay on top of your work. But with him, it wasn't about guidance. It was about domination, control. He'd offered to pay for college, but the strings attached weren't just expectations. They were chains. I wasn't allowed to take a class without his approval. I had to meet with him weekly to review my grades in detail. He wanted nothing below a B, fair, maybe, but I knew what would happen if I slipped. I knew what happened when I slipped. He wasn't the kind of parent who offered help when you stumbled. He was the kind who made you regret ever trying. So when the time came, I made a decision that scared me but felt right. I declined his offer. I took out loans, applied for grants, got a job. I chose stress over submission, debt over control, freedom over fear. And I paid for my first year of college entirely on my own. It wasn't easy. It still isn't. But I sleep better at night knowing that my education is mine, my choices, my life. I thought he'd respect that, even quietly. Maybe he wouldn't say it out loud, but I imagined, somewhere deep down, he'd feel a little pride. But when the 4th of July came, and the family gathered, and that question was asked, I realized that wasn't going to happen. They were talking about my cousin's school, how my aunt and uncle were paying for her tuition. It was the usual family banter. Majors, scholarships, class loads. And then the spotlight shifted to me. My uncle turned to my dad, jokingly, and said, "So how much is your kid's school costing you?" And that was it. That was the moment. My dad didn't answer right away. Maybe he was calculating what to say. Maybe he was going to lie. Or maybe, just maybe, he was going to own it. But I didn't give him the chance. I said, "What are you asking him for? I'm the one paying for it." It came out sharper than I intended, louder than I meant, and the silence that followed said everything. Later, when we were alone, he came at me hard, said I was out of line, that I embarrassed him in front of everyone, that I made him look bad. I told him it wasn't about looking bad. It was about being honest. He doesn't even know how much tuition is. He doesn't know my course load, my deadlines, my bills. So why should he get credit for something he has no part in? He didn't like that answer. Maybe he never will. I get it. From the outside, I might have sounded like a brat, like I was trying to shame him. Maybe I should have stayed quiet, let him answer. Maybe he would have told the truth. Or maybe he'd have said something vague and walked away with the praise. But here's the thing. He doesn't get to use my silence to build his image. He doesn't get to be the hero in a story he walked away from. He made a choice. Years of choices that taught me something. That love with conditions isn't love. That control disguised as help is still control. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. I've lived in the shadow of his expectations. I've learned to read the temperature in the room before I speak. I've learned to double-check every assignment, every number, not for myself, but to avoid the explosion. So no, maybe I didn't just answer a question. Maybe I finally stood up and said, enough. This is my life, my debt, my path, and I refuse to let anyone else take credit for it. And yet, it still haunts me, because he is my dad, because part of me wanted him to smile and say, I'm proud of them. They're paying their way. Because part of me still craves something I may never get from him. Because part of me still wonders, was I too harsh? Did I say it to hurt him? Was I really just trying to reclaim my story? Or was I lashing out? Was I wrong? So, am I the asshole? This story isn't about tuition. It's about the invisible cost of control. About what happens when love becomes conditional, when support becomes a transaction, when a parent's pride hinges on obedience instead of understanding. It's a story many of us know too well. The battle between being the good child and becoming our own person. OP made a choice, a hard one that comes with interest rates and sleepless nights, and maybe even a little guilt, but also with ownership, with freedom, with integrity. Was their delivery sharp? Maybe. But sometimes the truth has edges, and sometimes breaking free means letting people feel the consequences of their own actions, especially when they've never had to before. So here's what I want to ask you. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you love? Have you ever told the truth and watched it shatter the silence? Let us know in the comments. Share your story. Because here at AITA Story Vault, we don't just judge, we listen. And sometimes, that's all someone really needs. Someone to hear them and say, you're not alone. Thanks for listening.